in that sense, I think we all owe a lot to Mani, his wonderful self-deprecating style and, little bit of sarcasm and bite and everything that goes on in debates. It's wonderful to have that in this debate as well. And just a small anecdote of how we are all children of Mani in one sense. I didn't mean to give away his age by saying that. He doesn't look a day older than 95. But at the alumni meet in St. Stephen's College, the one preceding him was ex-Foreign Minister Natwar Singh, and he got very soggy-eyed, and he wrote in the register that everything I am today, I owe it to this college. And then he went away, and Mani followed him, and then Mani scribbled underneath what Natwar had written, "Why blame the college?" So that's... But coming swiftly back to the topic of the debate, I have to say this in the spirit that I'm sure the other side would accept gracefully, is that even a drunk acupuncturists deliver less pain per square inch than the arguments that we've heard so far from the other side. The reason for that is, and abhi to sai bhi baki hai, but the reason for that is, which world are we living in? I mean, it's just shocking, because this is the world of social media. You can't fool anyone now, especially the younger generation. I mean, it's just, and let me start off by saying that we believe what we see, but unfortunately what we see is increasingly being written by people who see what they believe. And that is what the media is. They are seeing what they believe. Journalism is justice delivered without the courts. It is a public good. It is as important as delivering justice. And I'm stating the obvious here, but the tragedy is that most of the journalists that you see are busy peddling narratives. They have become activists. They're not balanced anymore. They're not objective anymore. Even in science, that the moderator talked about COVID. And I say, please do not bring politics into science, because all then you would end up with is political science. But and there's nothing wrong in that. But there are a dozen, I don't know how much time we have, whatever X time I have, I'll take 30 seconds more than that. But the fact of the matter is, I can bust a dozen narratives, fake narratives over the last 8 years that have been peddled. And Sai can maybe bust a dozen more narratives. But it's tiresome after a while, because then you are left asking, what is the journalist's job? If the reader, if the viewer is there to bust the narratives, let me take what the other side, and I just mean other side as a rhetorical thing, that we're all the same. We're all on the same side, right? But at least in this debate, let me pick up the two issues that they talked of. Mani talked about BBC, he talked about Bofors, and he talked about how well-meaning and gracious the government was. I don't need to open that Pandora's box. I don't need to tell you how much stress and how much draconian measures were put under Chitra Subramaniam when she was doing the story of Bofors by Rajiv Gandhi and the PMO. I don't need to tell you when Mani talks about the BBC and saying, we didn't ban the BBC film. Right, you didn't ban the film. You banned the BBC for 2 years. And it wasn't under the emergency. It was before the emergency. 2 years. So, and this is the problem with journalism. It's somehow, over the last 8 years, it is giving the impression that everything bad that is happening in this country is happening for the first time. That before 2014, India was a Garden of Eden. Everything was perfect. And then we had this Cambrian explosion, that everything that could go wrong, except for a nuclear explosion, which we don't even know, maybe some newspaper would report a nuclear explosion has also happened. But everything that could go wrong has gone wrong. Let me pick up the other thing that Mr. Kulkarni talked of. His exact expression was, lights are dimming. Honestly, they seem pretty bright to me out here. Democracy is under threat. Democracy is under threat. This is ridiculous. And I'll prove it. And this is the last fake narrative that I'm going to bust and before I pass it on to Sai. This democracy is under threat. The biggest test of a functioning democracy, and my good friend Salman would agree because he's in the court, he's an eminent lawyer, are two things. The independence of the Supreme Court and the independence of the Chief Election Commission. Other than these two things, everything else is at the mercy of our Constitution. And I put it to you, I don't know what will happen to me once I say this, that we have been a banana republic ever since we became a republic. Our Constitution does not respect freedom of speech and expression, period. And whatever little it did was then soon trampled within a few years by Nehru's First Amendment. I'll come to that in a minute. Chacha ji ki baat karunga abhi. The fact of the matter is that all those who say democracy is dead, lights are dimming, and everything is happening for the first time, this assault on democracy, sedition charges, anti-national. Do they even know that under the UPA, and I'm not talking of Indira Gandhi emergency, and one doesn't need to go as far back as that. Let's go back only 8 or 9 years. Under the UPA, it filed 12,000 sedition charges on activists. 8,500 on the same day. And the then Home Minister, Mr. Chidambaram, yes, when he was asked, why are you doing this, he said, and I quote him, these are all anti-nationals. आपके एंटी नेशनल और आज के जो चल रहे हैं एंटी नेशनल, उसका क्या? There are so many other examples like that, and what does it even need to go back to the UPA days? Chhattisgarh government, Congress ruled government, they slapped a sedition charge on a person who complained of a blackout, a power cut. They filed a sedition charge under him. So many things are happening right now in Congress ruled states, but democracy is flourishing there. In Bengal, a non-BJP ruled state, a chemistry professor shared a cartoon of Mamata Banerjee. He was arrested. 2 weeks ago, this news, we don't even know because the Telegraph is all very prim and proper and doesn't want to go against Mamata. He was acquitted after 11 years, a chemistry professor. 11 years. Democracy is flourishing in Bengal. So, when we are this selective, we need to answer ourselves more than we can answer the public, because journalism is a public good. And last couple of minutes I want to take, because this narrative really has to be busted. We all believe and we know that yes, Rajiv Gandhi banned a few things. He wasn't really liberal, the paragon of liberty and equality and fraternity. Indira Gandhi, of course, brought in the emergency. A lot of things that this government has done is also draconian, and I have a list of that. This government, for example, the BJP government in Gujarat, it jailed an editor for 15 days because he criticized the COVID response of the then Chief Minister of Gujarat. So yes, all these things are happening. In fact, the most iconic phrase in the last 10 years that has been coined has been by Mr. Arun Shourie, when he says that all the BJP is Congress plus cow. And AAP, of course, is Congress plus Lamao, LMAO, but that's another matter. BJP is no different from the Congress. Please realize this.